7:27. Let's bring you up to date with the front pages this morning.
Right.
Maybe not.
No, we're not. Well, nice of you to suggest such a thing, but we'll not do that. Let's tell you that Christopher Biggins is chuckling away here, and Claire Purcell, and they'll be reviewing the papers this morning. Claire, you want to start with the Mirror front page, the story we've just been talking to the Shadow Schools Minister about super teacher hit squads.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a new idea either. Labour came up with this under Tony Blair with the idea of superheads who would get paid a very large salary, go in, sort out schools, and everything would be well. It didn't really work. It cost an awful lot of money. And I think what was interesting with your interview just now with Stephen Morgan, he didn't say where the money was going to come from. And I think that's a really interesting point. I know that Keir Starmer has originally said he would take away the charitable status of private schools, but that amount of money has been spent twice. One on getting teachers in the first place and paying them more, and now for this. And you can't have it all ways. So I think that funding is an issue. But it also doesn't make clear as to where these teachers are going to come from. If you're going to have a hit squad of teachers, well, surely that is taking them out of their own classrooms. So you are taking them away from the children that they are teaching to put them into another school where they're going to be supervising and almost like cheerleaders for teachers in a different school. So I think that it's a rehash of an old idea. It is badly thought through with no detail, and certainly there is no money. So unless they're raising taxes, it's not affordable.
Well, I believe Sir Keir Starmer's giving a speech on education today. Who knows? Maybe there'll be more detail in there. But the whole private school debate, I think the Chancellor came out saying that by their calculations, it would push at least 90,000 children back into the state sector because a lot of parents simply couldn't afford to see fees going up 20%, right, therefore costing the taxpayer more.
Exactly, and I think this is, people misunderstand the route of private schools. They're not for the super wealthy. A lot of people will go without other things to put their child into a private school, which is their choice, and I think that is.
But they're
right,
also still paying their taxes, which
absolutely still paying their taxes. And if the school places are so hard up at the moment, which I think we all know that trying to get your child into school is an incredible battle, then you're going to remove places from local children. It's all a mess, and it doesn't really solve the problem as to what is driving teachers away from the classroom, and also the behaviour of children.
If I was running schools, I would be saying, whether you agree with franchises or not, Pizza Express or McDonald's or whatever it happens to be, you know that when you go to one of these places, you get the same standard. Whether it's a good standard or bad standard, but you know what the standard is, right? Yeah. And you can then choose. Why can't our schools just be a standard set and it's a franchise? That's the way it has to be. All this business that some schools are better than others and there is this inequality. Why is there this inequality? It's the government's responsibility to make sure it is a standard service provided throughout the whole system.
Absolutely, that's how all education should be like. I mean, it's wrong. I mean, I just think, and also, I can't see that bringing in people at a huge expense to work out a situation which seems to be so easy to work out. You're right, Eamonn. Let's give it one level.
One level, okay. Christopher, utilities, there's one level there, and that's pretty bad. With responsibilities of water companies in particular. What's the story here? This is front page Financial Times.
Well, they're saying that the Thames Water, which of course are in terrible trouble, huge debt, this is going to affect investors in the UK, the ministers are saying.
No, investors who want to invest in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sorry. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So that's the problem. And the problem is that, it will deter overseas.
What the problem is that successive governments have just been so happy and so grateful to take money from anywhere, be it China, be it Russia, be it whatever. They'll take anybody's money and they will just sell off the crown jewels, everything that we've got. Does nobody in Britain have any money? So nobody in Britain to invest in.
No, nobody. They're all investing elsewhere.
Well, you know why? Because in Russia, in India, in the Middle East, whatever, they're all taking stuff out of the ground, which we don't do. So we're stopped. We can't frack, we can't do oil, gas, whatever. But everybody else around the world's got loads of dosh because that's exactly what they are doing.
Exactly.
And then they invested in this country.
Yeah.
I think there
Something wrong, I think, there.
There are a lot of problems with this, because with Thames Water in particular, they have taken a lot of government money relatively recently to try and bail them out of the mess that they were in, and they seem to have not managed to do it. So it's all very well to say, oh, it'll deter people from investing within the UK, and I don't think it will, but I think we need to work better with these companies if they are going to stay privatised, to make sure that they actually deliver what they're there to do, because they have an awful lot of money. Their credit lines used to be very, very good, but they're not putting it into infrastructure. So the government needs to come down on that, rather than just looking at the problem it will cause if we bring it into national control.
But how can they be in such debt? That is the extraordinary thing. How can that be?
Spectacular mismanagement.
Huge.
To allow that to happen is just disgraceful.
Well, yeah.
Oh, we could go on forever about the mess of those utility companies. Claire, Tory group wants to slash migration by stopping importing care workers. I mean, I'd love to know how these people think their whole care system actually works. Nobody here wants to do it. People from around the world will come and do it, and we should be very grateful for them in doing it. But what's the plan here?
Well, this is another breakaway group of the Conservative Party, of which we now have many. 25 individuals, one of which is Lee Anderson, who is a deputy chair of the party. So I wonder where the collective responsibility is if he can be out there doing something like this. They have a 10-point plan to reduce migration, and this seems to be the political football that is going to lead over into the next general election. From what I understand, they have a press conference coming up this afternoon after lunch, and they don't want these visas to be given to care workers coming in from outside the UK. And you're right, Eamonn. What are we going to do if you stop these people coming in, if you limit the amount of visas? Those care homes will shut. And then what are we going to do with people in the care? It's just a complete mess, and I think it's the wrong target to go for.
And it's not just the care workers that they're talking about. They want to cut immigration in total by 66%. So that would be, hospitality, nursing sector. But it will resonate with the electorate. Presumably this particular group of the electorate that the whole election will probably live or die by.
It is. And when you talk about 66%, that sounds a very impressive number, but you look at the industries it's going to hit. People still want fruit to be picked, they still want farms to be staffed, and they still need the NHS to be staffed. So as a headline-grabbing piece, it's fantastic, and it will appeal to a certain portion, but it's not thinking through the knock-on effects of that. And as we've seen already, hospitality has been hit really hard during COVID. It's now being hit even harder with the inability to staff a restaurant or a cafe, whatever, or a hotel, or whatever it may be. And the farming sector is just now decimated by not having those seasonal workers coming in.
Yeah. I mean, and also we're talking about, a health system that doesn't value doctors or nurses. Why would they value care staff? Where are they going to get the money to pay a rate that's going to actually attract people into this very valuable industry? And the thing about care workers, Biggins, I mean, both you and I have had hospital care in the past couple of years. Nobody has a view about it until they need it. And believe me, if you live, you're going to need it.
Absolutely. And of course, the trouble is we're all living too long. So we're going to...
should have gone a long time
a long time ago. I mean, it's ridiculous. Why are we here still 75 years old? I should have gone when I was 65 years old.
I remember you and I having a very morbid conversation over breakfast in Manchester one time about dying and the future and all that sort of thing.
What a lovely breakfast.
It's really good to do breakfast talk like that.
Yeah, it was good breakfast talk.
But we are living too long. That is the real
There's no
problem.
point living longer if you're not living better.
No, exactly. And I think once you start having things go wrong with you, then that's it,
Oh, come on, you two.
No, but it's true. There's no point living longer if you're not living better. No. I mean, if you're living, there's a lot of people I know that have lived into their 90s with no quality of life at all. I wouldn't want it for me.
No.
I'd rather go out with a bang.
I agree totally. Or just fall asleep. That's what I'd like to do.
Oh, that'd be nice. nice.
Yeah, nice.
That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Stanley Tucci, a guy who I like a lot. He's 62 years of age.
Me too.
He's got a very young wife. I admire him a lot for this. And he says actors should not be restricted to roles which match their sexuality. This is in the Express.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole point of acting, he says, is to pretend.
Yes.
And that's exactly what acting is all about.
Have you ever had to pretend to be straight?
Yes. My
Yes.
goodness, I played the sex-crazed vicar in Poldark.
Oh, right. Yes, of course you
You know,
did.
I mean,
yes, of
God,
course you
it
did.
was fantastic. I loved it. Making love to Julie Dawn Cole's feet. I mean, it was wonderful. She went to Dr. Scholl's every day during rehearsal
Have them
periods.
perfumed.
To have them perfumed. And then she was carried onto the set at Pebble Mill, placed in the bed, and the opening scene was her foot and my tongue coming between her two toes. I mean, oh, well, all of the toes. And it was just wonderful stuff. Oh, God, that was pretending, I can assure you, in lots of ways.
You think Tucci, though, for instance, as a gay man, you would think Tucci has a point here. The whole point of acting is to pretend.
Of course it is. I mean, you know, what there's no other point. You know, and then people are saying, oh, you have to be gay to play a gay man. You have to be, if you're playing a blind character, you have to be blind. It's all ridiculous. You know, that's why we go to drama school, to learn how to do all these things. And it's just, that's what it's all about. Look at the stars that we've created over the years. Betty Davis was always Betty Davis. But she was, you know, she did everything. She played any part that she could do and was offered. That's what it should be like.
Okay.
Oh, Claire, what's happening in supermarkets and corner shops? They're seeing a rise in the sales of beer, but not just any beer.
Ah, yes, this is alcohol-free beer. We are all becoming a little bit more health conscious, and we want to cut down the amount of alcohol that we're drinking. And these alcohol-free beers that are coming up through all of the big brands, you can get sort of your Peroni, your Guinness, and craft beers as well, which are coming through. So they're brewed in the same way, just with the alcohol removed.
See, Claire, I wonder, is it health consciousness or is it just cheaper because if there's no alcohol in it, they don't pay tax?
But I think I think there's a bit of both here. But there are a lot of people these days who are choosing not to drink alcohol for whatever reason. It might be health, it might be social pressures, and people are looking to an alternative. And in the past, these drinks were not very widely found, and if they were, they weren't very good. But now the quality of them is pretty impressive. My husband drinks the alcohol-free Guinness.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've tried it, and it does taste very, very similar. It's never going to be as good as a Dublin Guinness, but it is pretty near. So I think that people will choose to do that, and especially when you consider living in the countryside, pubs are a long way from where you live normally, so you have to drive. And if you can have what looks like a drink and makes you feel sort of part of it, I think sometimes that comes into it. You're not just sitting there sipping a water or a
I'd like to
drink.
know the ages of the people, though. I suspect this is definitely the younger generation that are embracing alcohol-free more than, I say, my generation and above.
Yeah, I do. I think it is the younger generation coming through aren't drinking as much as perhaps they would have done.
Well, I don't
decades
drink,
ago.
but Isabel's mission is to get me to drink. She thinks I'd be a better all-round person if I...
But you would, Eamonn.
Do you think I would?
Oh, yes.
I'd let my inhibitions go.
Absolutely. You'd be free, man.
What's your tipple?
I like a vodka.
body.
Isabel, what do you like?
Oh, I'm a sucker for rosé. Rosé all
Claire?
day.
Gin and tonic.
Yeah.
Nice gin and tonic.
Yeah.
I like rosé too, actually. But
Well, I got Eamonn onto a Bloody Mary the other morning.
Oh, it nearly made me throw up.
He said it tasted like a Caesar salad in a glass.
It's
Yeah.
awful. It's awful.
So I had two instead.
Can't go to waste.
Though I did a presentation or an interview with a lady, a primatologist. I mean, she studies apes, called Jane Goodall, very famous woman, 90 years of age. And she says, what do you do to look after your voice? I said, I don't do anything. She said, here, have a whiskey. I said, I don't drink. She says, you do now. She poured me a straight Johnny Walker, one lump of ice in it, and she had the same. And then we had that, and that was very good. And then she said, that you responded to that so well, have another one. So I had two. And I think it made the interview better.
I bet it did.
it freed you up.
Indeed. Lot to be said for it.
Biggins, are you a cricket fan?
No. But I'm fascinated by this story. I mean, I
Okay.
really love it. I mean, the fact that all these posh club fans, you know, who would sit there with their ties on, watching cricket, and pretending it's wonderful and marvelous, and suddenly they rebelled yesterday because, of course, Bairstow, I think that's how you pronounce it, was walking away from the stumps, thinking that his thing was
The play had stopped, but he was
Stopped.
technically still in play.
and an Australian was quick as a flash and threw a ball at the stumps out.
Yes.
And he was out.
Yes.
And it was disgraceful behaviour. I mean, that's typical Australians, if you ask me. I mean, but I love the fact that in the long room at Lord's, they all went mad and screamed and shouted.
Booed and hissed.
Booed and hissed, all these sort of controlled people. Don't you find it's interesting now? All sports seem to be getting really aggressive people watching them, really loving it so much, and they shout and they scream and they get up and they throw their arms in the air and shout. I mean, that used to happen. I thought
We're all getting rowdier.
Yeah, we are getting rowdy.
And obviously Wimbledon gets underway today, and Kyrgios isn't playing, but he famously has kind of changed the tennis landscape.
Yeah.
And whilst I do appreciate that he's a wonderful tennis player, it always annoys me.
Yeah.
I just think toe the line. Upsets me that everyone's not in white to start off with.
I
You don't
agree.
need to be in white in
Don't.
all tournaments. But
Do you know, I mean, there's this whole big thing about it's a victory for women's lib, and I agree with it, that women's pants are to be changed to a darker colour. Do you know about that?
Wimbledon.
Why?
Yeah.
No, I haven't followed it.
Well, for hygiene rules and
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
No, I do.
Oh,
know
I
the
see.
Story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't really want to know.
No, I don't want to know that. No.
Yeah, but I think you're all deluded that you think that sport used to be more genteel and different in days gone by. It
Always
wasn't.
brutal.
It was always brutal. It wasn't. I mean, you look at the 1966 World Cup and what England had to go through in that tournament.
Yeah, but that was football.
Yeah, that was football. Okay, you look at tennis during the McEnroe years and the Jimmy Connors years, and it was absolutely chaotic.
True.
People. I mean, that was like open warfare between guys like that. And even in the women's game.
Yeah, but the audience, though, watching the tennis was never sort of getting.
Yes, they
out of
were.
it,
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot in those days. I mean, we've got Just Stop Oil. In those days, it was people whipping their clothes off.
Yeah, that was much more fun,
Streakers.
wasn't it? Why can't they bring back
was gonna say,
streaking?
Yeah, I agree. Streaking would really cheer up cricket.
There was that song,
Absolutely.
and then they called it the streak.
Yeah, that's right.
That was in the charts
Yes.
and everything. That all happened
I
during.
have to say that the tennis crowd is generally still pretty polite.
Yeah, I think.
I think the cricket crowd's pretty drunk because, it's a long,
But
slow
this is
game, so they
Lord's.
drink.
This is Lord's Cricket Ground. This is the
I know,
home
but
of
they do
cricket. This
still
is the
get-
MCC, the long room, which is the most beautiful room.
Yeah.
You don't expect people in those sort of jackets and the tie to come out and start accusing
Sometimes
people
they're
of
the
cheating.
worst.
I think so, but I think all that jostling, it was not a good look.
No,
I
I
do
agree.
find it quite amusing. The Australians are turning around saying, "You're all mean to us." So I think the
I would
irony
rather
here is
people
quite
had
nice.
a desire to win than be polite about everything.
Yeah, well, I think winning is good.
Yeah, I'd be a very bad loser.
No, I don't like. I'm the same. That's why I don't do them.
Yeah.
Sports.
Guys, well, please do the papers again. Come back in about 45 minutes' time. We'd appreciate if you did. Claire, Christopher, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.